Hey team, meet Skimpies, the organic cotton undie made like a liner. Skimpies are for all of us who love going commando but can't quite pull it off like we used to. You just pop Skimpies directly into your pants, press firmly, and it's like you're wearing underwear without the gnarly panty lines. No PFAs, no synthetics, no irritation. Just clean, breathable, organic cotton where you need it most. Created by Bette Bentley, inspired by her own journey as an absolute babe who wanted to live that commando life, but without the UTIs. Go to skimpies.com to get started. Every peach deserves its day, and Skimpies is here to help make it happen. Skimpies, we just want to be in your pants. Hey team, and welcome. I'm your host, Carrie, creator of Mother Life, your destination for all things real talk and parenting. This is the IRL group chat, where we talk about the wild balancing act of pursuing careers and passions while also doing our best to show up for our kids. Join me every week as I sit down with some badass parents in my closet and we talk about their careers, kids, and relationships and all of the weird shit that comes up when you're trying to balance the seemingly impossible. As a parent, I find it excruciating to watch my kids struggle. I know they have to in order to grow, to learn, to evolve, but it doesn't make me want to jump out of my skin any less. In those times of temporary agony, I love hearing from happy, successful, fulfilled people that at some point bristled against something. Those stories stick with me so much more than the linear good boy, good girl tropes. I tuck them away like little mental sticky notes when I find my kids not wanting to go along with convention or having a tough time figuring something out. What stuck out to me about this week's guest is that he is both passionate about excellence and achievement and also freely talks about how not all chapters of his life were filled with that singular focus. He has a very clear foundation for his values and strong sense of family, and also is carving a new brand of parenting and family life alongside his wife, a departure from his own lived experience as a kid. My takeaway from this sort of duality is that my kids can, will, must struggle or buck against convention to grow. They can forge a path in this life that I don't necessarily understand, while also holding on to values from how they were raised. They can still feel familiar to me while building something entirely new for themselves. The man who had me mulling all of this over is Dr. Ira Savetsky. He's a board-certified plastic surgeon whose practice in New York has gained a reputation for focusing on natural-looking treatments while racking up quite the roster of celebrity patients, from Jill Zarin to Dina Lohan and beyond. His work has been featured in Marie Claire, The New York Post, Us Weekly, The Wall Street Journal, Women's Health, People, and he's been published extensively in medical peer-reviewed journals. Enjoy this conversation. It's not every day you get to work vaginal rejuvenation into a casual chat, so counting myself lucky today. Are we going by Ira today or Dr. Savetsky?
Whatever you want.
I feel like it's really irreverent to call a doctor by their first name.
You could say Dr. Ira.
Dr.
That's
Ira.
easier.
I bet that's what your patients call you, isn't it?
A lot of them do, yeah.
Okay.
My last name's hard.
Savetsky?
It's not the easiest. That's good. You did a good job.
I feel like if you're like even a little bit Jewish, you could do it.
Exactly.
So welcome to the closet, Dr. Ira. I'm very happy to have you here. Where are you right now?
I'm currently in my office, New York City, Upper East Side.
And it's
Parquet.
MLK Day, and you have 3 small kids, and so nobody's in school today.
Nobody's in school today.
So
but everyone came to work today.
So you're in the most peaceful place in town then.
Absolutely. If you're a seasoned parent, you know not to come home before like 7:30.
Absolutely not. So I'm excited to go on this journey. I know a little bit about, obviously, you have this like insanely interesting career and you wear so many hats in life, but we're gonna go way back to baby Dr. Ira, just little Ira, and we're gonna get to today. Let's do it. So where did you grow up?
So I grew up in the Five Towns, Long Island. So a very Jewish neighborhood. I grew up very sheltered. I didn't know anyone basically that wasn't Jewish except for my neighbor who happened to be Korean, but
that's a good
that
one.
was pretty. So very Jewish, went to Jewish day school my whole life. Very just, homogeneous type of crowd. And really didn't sort of spread my wings until I guess high school, I got out a little bit more, even though I was still in a Jewish day school. I hopped around a few high schools just because I wasn't the most caring about my studies at that point.
Yeah.
So only later on did I sort of buckle down a little bit more.
Now, what's your relationship like with Christmas? Because I always joke that every little Jewish kid loves Christmas the most because it's forbidden fruit. Like, I was dying for blue and white like Christmas lights, Hanukkah lights on our house, or like a Hanukkah bush or anything, and my parents were not having it. Did you have FOMO? Or because it sounds like everyone you grew up with was also Jewish, maybe the FOMO wasn't as intense?
Yeah, I don't think it was as intense, but Home Alone was my era, so it's hard not to, look at that and be like, oh wow, that's pretty awesome.
You can't beat a twinkly light.
No, you can't. But driving around my neighborhood growing up, there was just not a lot of Christmas lights, so there was definitely same thing with Halloween. There were just people weren't really trick or treating that much, so hard to have FOMO.
That's really hardcore. My son used to go to like a Jewish preschool, and the rabbi every Friday like does his best to tell a story that's relevant to like a 3-year-old, which good luck. And I remember on Halloween that like his last year there, he was basically saying, it was also on Shabbat that year, and he was like trying to square all of this for everybody, and he's like, listen, it's okay to go trick-or-treating, and it's okay to do it on Shabbat. Like, he was like giving everyone the pass. It was so funny. And I was like, it just hadn't even crossed my mind. I'm like, oh yeah. Because, I grew up like conservative, but not so hardcore. It didn't cross my mind that we wouldn't be doing trick-or-treating. Mm-hmm. That's another level.
Right. Yes.
Okay. So you said you hopped around high schools, you didn't get serious. And I want to talk about this because I think it's really valuable when you talk to somebody successful and they say that there was a point in their life that they didn't love school. I think it's important for both parents to hear that and also kids to hear that, because sometimes it can feel so heavy and intense when you are parenting a kid who isn't into school that you think the world's going to end. And look at you, you've turned out just fine. I mean, you're literally like your Jewish mom's dream. You became a doctor. Like, what else do they want? So for you, what was it about school that was just like not interesting?
I was more interested in having fun and like hanging out. And I think, it wasn't school itself that I didn't love, but I just enjoyed not being in the classroom and just kind of hanging out with friends and just sort of, spreading my wings in that way. But at the same time, I think there was, being at a Jewish school, you have a double curriculum, so it's a long day. So you're there from, 7:30, 8 o'clock until after 5. And, you're doing all Judaic studies, then you're doing all the secular studies. So I think it could be taxing, and I think that I didn't have probably the most inspiring teachers along the way.
I can see that. Now, what were in terms of like the expectations in your house? Did your parents have like Ira, when you grow up, these are the 3 professions that we're cool with, or was it a little bit more free reign?
Oh no, there was no free reign. There was only one profession I could become. Both me and my brother are doctors, so that was kind of, that was going to be the standard for the men, the boys in the household. So yeah, that was the only option, and I guess it worked because there was a lot of subtle brainwashing along the way, and here we are.
And who's older? Is it just the 2 of you, or are there girls in
there
also?
I'm the youngest of 4. So I have 2 older sisters and an older brother. Okay. And I'm the youngest.
And so we love birth order on the pod. Like, I feel like fuck astrology, it's about birth order. Birth order tells us, so the fact that you're a little bit of a goofball who wants to be social with your friends, 100% tracks. The doctor thing would have thrown somebody off, but now that we know that it was like the family trade that you had to do, now it's like, okay, well, we can excuse that because we know that there was still a goofball in there who wasn't that into school for a time. Okay, so you're the youngest of 4. And was the dynamic like, I imagine nobody was given much free reign, because sometimes people say like, oh, the oldest sibling really paved the way for the younger siblings to get away with stuff, but it doesn't sound like anybody was getting away with anything in your house.
You know what? Yes and no. It really was sort of the stereotypical, my oldest sister probably, had the most restrictions, and then, every child got less and less. My older brother, who's 3 years older than me, he did pave the way because he was not a good kid. So he really
Do you hear that, brother?
He pushed the envelope. So then when it came to me, it wasn't like a unique experience. It was like, oh, okay, we've dealt with this before.
And are you like the little mushy baby of the family? Is everyone, or are you, because now I find I'm the youngest. I find it like my oldest brother like still treats me like I'm 5. And I'm like, I'm a grown ass person with children and a life, but he still in his mind treats me like I'm 5. For you, it's even more so because you hold this, like, doctors hold this status in society as like being the adults in the room among adults in a lot of ways. So what is it like at home? Does everyone just
I'm definitely the most adult in the room. So yeah, it's interesting. I definitely think that I hold things together, and I'm the most, oftentimes the biggest voice of reason among my siblings.
That's a hard job, especially when there's so many of you.
Yeah.
You have 3, right?
3 siblings.
I
have 3 kids.
Right?
Yeah.
I have 2, and I genuinely, and I know that like if you have more, like you just figure it out. But the idea of 4 is too many. It's so many people.
Yeah, I feel like today, like you having 2 kids is probably the equivalent of our parents having 3. I feel like there's a lot more to navigate with our kids and distractions, and there's just a lot going on. It's not just like, come home from school, go play in the street for a couple hours and come, and then they'll just come in for dinner at some point. There's just a lot going on.
Those were the days.
Yeah.
Now, okay, so it sounds like you grew up pretty like stereotypical gender norm type roles. Does that mean mom is homemaker, dad is out working?
Yeah.
And was your dad
my dad's
doctor?
Yeah. No, he's a lawyer. He's still working. And my mom was a stay-at-home. She like worked for 6 months as a teacher and then stayed home.
Yeah, which like with that many kids, do you feel like under other circumstances she would have like thrived in a professional work setting, or was she sort of built for that life?
I feel like she could have done a lot, but I think that was just sort of how she envisioned her life. And her mom was similar, but her mom was a Holocaust survivor and just sort of was very much committed to bringing her and her brother up, and so I think that's just what she saw as the way to do things.
That was the example. And what was it in terms of like socially? You said, in your house it was like there was one thing for the men to do when they grew up, doctor. Was that the case like among all of your friends as well, or was that unique to your house?
I think it was pretty unique to my house. I don't think other families were as strict. I know a handful of people who became doctors, like from growing up. I feel like a lot of people just did various things.
Now, when you say strict, like how Jewish are we? Are we keeping kosher at home?
Yeah, growing up, yep. Strict kosher home.
And like, do you keep kosher now? Before I ask you the next question? Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
I was going to be like, do you ever like, cheeky get a piece of bacon somewhere? Yeah. But okay, if we're keeping kosher, we're keeping kosher.
Yeah, but I didn't have a straight path. I definitely, veered off course for a few years and kind of came back. And, so I've tried a little bit of, tried variety, got a taste of things.
We laugh because in my house, I'm Jewish, my husband is not. And his diet is more close to kosher than mine. I mean, I don't like really eat much meat in general, but like he doesn't eat any beef, he doesn't eat any pork, he doesn't eat any shellfish. So by de facto, he's a better Jew. which he'll remind me of every now and then. But okay, so you had a little bit of a circuitous path. You eventually need to leave this small town to go to college. Did you have visions of where that experience would be? Like, did you want to be close to home? I know you went to school in Philadelphia.
I went to med school in Philly, but I went to
In New
college
York.
at Queens College, which is City University. And again, that was like one of those things that we were all destined to go to because my whole family went there. And it was like, why do you need to go anywhere else? Go anywhere else. It's like, it was good value.
We love good value. Okay, so you go to college closer to home, but were you living out of the house at that point, or were you living at home?
Yeah. No, I was at home.
Okay, so
Between high school and college, I did go to Israel for a gap year.
did you like live on a kibbutz? Did you wear
No.
Birkenstocks? Oh.
Yes.
Okay, at least one of those things was true. Okay, so you did a gap year, you go to college. Was there any point where, you mentioned you're like, okay, I'm not in Kansas anymore. Like, something about life is different than it was in Long Island?
Yeah, not so much. I feel like college was an extension of high school for the most part because there was a lot of the same people. It was obviously more diverse than a Jewish school, but it felt more of an extension. It wasn't like your typical college experience.
And
which was probably good for me.
you think?
Because I think if I was at a typical college experience, I think I would have been very distracted and hanging out and like partying. And I feel like because I didn't have that as an option, I was really able to just focus on studying.
Head down. It's so funny imagining this party boy or this like slumbering party boy, because when you go through your like professional accolades, like the number of journals, the things that you sit on, the boards, the residencies, the fellowships, it's like this guy was the Joker, because it's like all extremely like heart attack serious.
Right.
I appreciate duality. I like that. So we know you're destined to be a doctor. When does plastic surgery enter your consciousness as the path?
So I actually thought I wanted to do surgical oncology. I was always, I had done research in oncology in college, and I knew I wanted to do surgery. That was always like what I was always sure about. And then I just felt this draw towards cancer for whatever reason. And I had spent some time at Sloan Kettering along the way. And at some point, I figured that I love surgery and I liked surgical oncology. I liked the surgeries, but I felt there was also something about it that I thought was very heavy. And so then I thought, and then when you're in these big operations, sometimes there's a lot of reconstruction involved. And when I was in medical school, seeing the plastic surgeons sort of come in and reconstruct after a cancer operation, I thought was really interesting. So I felt like I could take sort of my interest in cancer, but instead of removing the cancer, sort of reconstructing after that. So that's sort of how I got into the idea of reconstructive surgery.
And it's such a long road. Like, how many years were you in school? Bajillion?
So I did 4 years of college, 4 years in med school, 6 years of residency, another 2 years of research, and another year of fellowship. So 9 after medical school.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And so then after all of that, when is the point that you like put up your own shingle as like your own practice?
Yeah, so I was always planning on doing that, which was, a lot of people think, I grew up, my wife also grew up very risk-averse households. And my dad is a big mutual fund guy. He's not...
Yeah. He's not making big risky bets.
No, they're not taking big risks. So, but I always had this idea of, opening up a practice and, being on Park Avenue. That was just sort of was my goal. And when I was finishing up fellowship, which was during COVID in 2020, I was in Dallas doing fellowship, and I was ready to come back to New York, but my wife was not. And she was like, it was in the middle of COVID. She said, everyone's leaving New York. She was pregnant with our third. And so, at the last minute, she's like, we're not going back to New York. And I was like, oh God, I need to get a job, I guess. So I actually was able to find a really good job. I worked for a large dermatology group, and I was their sort of in-house plastic surgeon, and I did that for 2 years. And then once the world started to open up a bit more, I said, all right, we got to get out of here.
Wow.
And that's when I moved back to New York and hung up a shingle.
So when does your wife enter the picture? Where did you guys meet, or when did you meet?
We met through a mutual friend who was her counselor on Birthright. So she went on Birthright between high school and college, and then she moved to New York to go to NYU. So we met basically when she was 19.
And how old were you?
But I was 21.
Older man.
But we didn't. Yeah. But we didn't get together right away. It took a couple of years.
And I assume, did she come from a similar background to you, or different?
Different. She grew up in Texas she grew up in Texas in a much more a conservative Jewish upbringing, but in Texas, which is different than growing up conservative, let's say in New York. So she grew up cheerleading, football Friday nights. Those were her Friday night lights.
I mean, she is a stone cold fox, so that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Of course she was. Wow. Okay. So that is also just super interesting, because, I think sometimes people say as a shorthand, we're both Presbyterian, or we're both Jewish, or we're both whatever. And that's the assumption that there's enough shared ground, or just the fact within, being Jewish, your culturally, you guys would have been coming from really different places about pretty much everything.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Even if you take the religion out of it, just the coming from New York and Texas.
Yeah, there was a lot of after we got engaged, and when the wedding planning was definitely a very big stressor, because we were young and our families were paying for it, and there was a lot of disputes with all of it.
I truly can only imagine. But so for you, you had this specific model of, I assume that you probably assumed you would get married and have kids because that's what you saw. Was there a part of you that was I really want that, or is that's just what you're supposed to do?
Yeah, I think I wanted it. I don't think that I had a specific timeline, although I feel like a lot of my friends did get married young. But I wasn't aggressively seeking it, and neither was my wife, and I think we just organically kind of headed down that path.
And then I imagine, so where were you on your trajectory when you had your first kid?
So I was in residency. So we got married in medical school, and then had our first kid in residency.
And is she's not a doctor also, right? Is she?
No, at the time she was working in fashion PR.
Okay. Honestly, that makes her very close to a Long Island Jewish girl. So that's sort of similar.
True.
So, okay, so she's working in fashion PR. You're in residency. That's a really intense time for you, working-wise.
Mm-hmm.
Intense for her, becoming a parent, becoming a mom is obviously just an absolute mindfuck. Baby arrives. You're working crazy hours, doing everything that you need to be doing. Was your world exploded by this arrival, trying to navigate all of this, or did it feel pretty seamless?
Sometimes when you're drowning, a little bit more water doesn't really have the same
You're
impact.
Sure, give me another thing.
Yeah, I wasn't really sleeping much, and for me it wasn't as big of an adjustment than it was, I'm sure, for my wife.
Yeah. Now, my husband always says that the second one was a bigger adjustment for him than the first. Agree or disagree?
Yeah, I think
He
so.
says that there's
What?
less, like, fewer places to hide.
Yeah, 1 to 2 is a big change. 0 to 1 is just a change because you have to like care for like another human, but it's not necessarily that hard because you have two of you. 1 to 2 it definitely much more is much busier. 2 to 3 is actually not as big of an adjustment from 1 to 2.
I've heard that, but there's a lot of internet memes, I feel, with like people who are just like covered in crumbs and cereal telling other people to have third children. They're like, it's so fun. And it's like, you look like you're dying.
We had a 6 year gap between our second and third,
Cha-ching.
so I think that helped.
That's hugely helpful. That is, the spacing matters. That's a big one. You don't have anyone in diapers when you introduce a new person with diapers.
Right.
That's pretty big.
Which is, it's actually kind of hard to go back to diapers after not having them for a while.
I'm on the
But
precipice of no diapers in my house, and I'm pretty amped, I have to say. I will not miss it.
it is nice. No.
Okay, so you guys are juggling a lot at the time. You find this cool sort of niche job for you inside this dermatology practice. Then you eventually make it back to New York. You put your shingle up. At what point do you become like one of the celeb guys? Like, I feel like there's plastic surgeon and then there's celebrity plastic surgeon, where all of a sudden you just get a certain kind of clientele that start to gravitate toward you. And I'm sure it's in part just like friends telling their friends. But does that happen for you? Was that like an organic thing that happened? Did you imagine that was going to happen?
I mean, I always, sort of strive to be the best possible, whatever it may be. And it's very organic. And, it's just, the most important thing is just taking care of people, doing the right thing. And I think that if you're a good doctor and you do the right thing, you do good work, I think just things just naturally go in that direction. There's a lot of, you hear all these stories in the neighborhood. It's a small community, even though there's probably like a few hundred plastic surgeons within a few blocks, but you just hear crazy stories, and it's hard to imagine ever doing, like abandoning patients and like, things like that. So I feel like just doing the right thing and taking care of people is sort of the key to success in this field.
Now, when people come to you, do they often have like a very specific thing of what they want, or is it more of a like, hey, I'm sort of not happy with this. How do those conversations go?
Yeah, I think a lot of people come into the office with something that they want to improve upon. They may not know exactly what needs to be done, but they'll say, "I look tired," or or my neck is starting to sag. They'll say what's kind of bothering them, and then come up. You'll come up with a treatment plan. Although patients are very savvy these days, and they watch a lot of TikToks, so oftentimes they'll come in with very specific requests.
And then you have to say like, that's not actually the thing you want, or maybe it is the thing they want. I don't know, but like you then have to help them navigate that, right?
Yeah, sometimes there's a lot of, what's the word? What's the opposite of influencing?
De-influencing.
It was a
Yeah.
de-influencing. That was like a big thing for a
Yes,
while, right?
yes.
So you have to sometimes de-influence, or sometimes just uneducate bad education, and that's a lot of the time I'm spending with patients, is trying to like teach them of why something may not be the right thing for them.
Now, for you, like I imagine also people come in and you're like, maybe you shouldn't get anything, or like maybe this is not right. Does that sort of conversation happen too?
Yeah. Oh yeah. A lot of times, there's a saying in surgery: it takes 5 years to learn how to do surgery, and then 20 years to learn who not to operate on. And that's really the trick of the trade, is to say no, basically. And if you operate on, someone that you sort of had suspicions that, something was a little bit off, like they could drive you kind of crazy for, once you operate on them, that's it. You're their doctor.
Yeah.
And there's no going, you can't ditch them. So
you really got to be committed to I guess I hadn't considered that aspect of it, but it's like you were really committed to this person, so you better want to spend some time with them.
Yes.
Now in, the backdrop of all of this, I know that you have this reputation of being like the natural look guy. People come to you because they want a natural look. Is that something, like, where did that sort of perspective, POV from you come from?
Yeah, I always, it's just sort of my aesthetic. I feel like in general, like a New York City aesthetic as a whole is more sort of quiet luxury, undetectable work. People would much rather be underdone than overdone. And, I think that's just the aesthetic that, I like. And I think a lot of people in New York like, and a lot of people come to New York for that aesthetic, in contrast to, let's say, Miami or,
I'm in LA.
or
That's the thing.
Or LA. Yeah. So, I think that it's sort of the culture of the city of where you are oftentimes. And, but I think as a whole, plastic surgery is coming back to a more understated aesthetic than it was in the past.
And so, how old are your kids now?
13, 11, and 5.
And is it girl,
boy?
Okay. So for the girls, they're at an age, especially the 13-year-olds, and 11, I guess all of this stuff, like I feel like the age is moving up all of the time, or moving down all the time, their awareness, especially because of social media and stuff. Like, what do they understand of what you do in terms of like what you're doing for your clients, and what's their POV?
Oh yeah, they know everything.
Are they curious?
They're curious. My 11-year-old sometimes, like on the weekend, if I have to see a patient in my office, or sometimes somebody, like a little kid will cut themselves, and someone will ask me if I could stitch them up. She'll like love to come with me to the office and like help out and like be on lollipop duty and things like that. So she's like very like curious, and she'll ask me things. So yeah, we're very honest with them. I'm not saying that's the right way in parenting, but they're like totally exposed and see and hear everything.
And how do you guys, I'm sure it's a conversation that you and your wife are probably having all the time and evolves all the time. Like, how do you guys talk about body stuff in your house? Because 11 and 13, when I look back at pictures of myself at that age, I just remember feeling so unhappy in my body, and now I'm like, wait, I was kind of ripped, like I was like in great shape, but I remember at the time, I just remember being like, I'm hideous. It's just such a hard, crazy hormonal time. How do you guys talk about and navigate all of this stuff?
Yeah, fortunately, I would say both of my girls are very confident in their bodies, and just overall, I feel like they have a lot of confidence, which, we're lucky. There's not a lot of pep talks, I feel like, when it comes to those things. And but I could see it certainly being like very challenging in navigating. And I'm sure it will be. Like, we're just sort of at the beginning. Yeah. Yeah.
And like food stuff. And I just, my dad's a doctor. I just remember growing up, I don't think he had the language to talk about it in a particularly constructive way, but he was always very aware of like what we were eating, and he's in great shape. So I think he was always trying to like encourage us, but it like didn't necessarily come out right, but it came from a good place, but it was pretty cringy if I think about it now. Like, are you guys of the school of like, eat whatever? Do you cook at home most of the time? Like, how is the food thing conversation going? Or is it just not?
We have no restrictions on
Good.
food. I think we should. No, we don't. We have none. And I grew up with no restrictions, and and I see like other families where they like, there's no candy in the house, and like they come over to our house and they just like, they're just like going nuts. Meanwhile, like my kids, they don't like eat a lot of candy because it's just like there. So we don't have a lot of we don't have any restrictions on food. We have a really good housekeeper who'll cook dinner and stuff.
God bless her. Or him.
Yeah, her.
God bless her.
Yeah.
I love it. And then what's like life like with a family in New York City? We moved from New York when my son was 1 to LA. It was kind of like a COVID move. We wanted more space and all of this stuff. You guys, are you in the city, like in the city?
Mm-hmm.
So you're like really living that city, like you are raising city kids.
Yeah. It's for me, it's so efficient just in terms of, I feel like if we didn't, I wouldn't see my kids very much at all during the week. And so it allows me to see them a lot more. And I think my kids, they really like living in the city.
It immediately makes you cool. I mean, there's nothing cooler than a New York City kid. Like, you didn't grow up in the city. Like, do you not think that New York City kids are the coolest? The coolest.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Yes, exactly. No, it's true. And they do have, like, more, I would say, they're less sheltered, obviously. They know, when to cross the street and whatnot, and I think they walk by themselves to Starbucks, and they'll get in Ubers by themselves. So it's good. It's like sort of graduated responsibility, but they're definitely much more advanced than the Long Island kids.
Yeah, certainly. I couldn't imagine. Now let's talk a little bit about the division of labor, because it looks different in every family, and you guys are both really busy people. What is the biggest recurring argument that you and your wife have? We have a couple of big ones. I'll give you examples while you're... So one of our like sense of timeliness, like what being on time looks like. Like I grew up very much like you need to be early to be on time, and that will never happen anymore ever again till I die. Another one is like, what does the dishes being done look like? Like, to me, dishes being done mean the dishes are fucking done. Whereas for him, it's like every dish that could be in the dishwasher is in the dishwasher, but the pots and pans are still in the sink. Like, what are the things that... Or like how we think about talking to our kids. Like he's a little bit more like sort of stern voice, and I'm trying to do the stuff on Instagram that I saw about how to talk to my kids about their big feelings. Like what are sort of the moments of friction looking like?
Yeah. So the time thing is definitely an issue.
Who's who? Which is which?
I'm always on time for work and surgery. Like I'm early, but when it comes to social events, I don't prioritize being on time at all. I just don't think it's important.
You're just fashionably late.
Fashionably late, and leave fashionably early.
Very chic. Very chic.
Irish exit. Yeah. I'm all about the Irish exit.
Okay, we'll call it the Ira exit. Okay.
There you go.
So time. What else? Are there any things like, do you grew up with this like very stereotypical like moms do this and dads do this? Has that sort of dynamic translated into this generation, or are you guys doing any things that you think are like, oh, my dad would never?
Oh yeah, no, we're totally different than our parents. I'm definitely much more, I'm the neat one. My wife is a mess. So, but like we've been married for 16 years. So I've given up, so like, I'm not even trying anymore. I'll either just pick up things and put them away or just accept it. So there's no, she's not cleaning dishes, she's not cooking, she's not picking up her clothes. So I've learned to just accept it, and we have a really good housekeeper who kind of steps in and does a lot of those
The
things.
third member of your marriage, of course.
Yeah.
Critical.
Yeah.
If you can
Yes.
if you can afford it, if you have the means, like that can really alleviate some tension in a dynamic.
Definitely.
Now, with the kids where they are, you've got one that's still like a little peanut. Is it Ollie? Is that the little guy?
Ollie, yeah. Yeah.
He's, how old is he? 5.
5.
So he's the same as my 5-year-old boy. That's a lot, first of all. Just like a 5-year-old boy, at least in my house, is a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah. Yes.
So be prepared me.
Yeah, he's
A lot.
Yeah, he's my girls are great. They like wake up every morning at 6:15, they get themselves ready, they get themselves breakfast. He's the one that kind of, throws everyone off. So, you have to drag him out of bed, you got to get him dressed, you got to get him breakfast, and he's just like complaining the whole time.
They're little agents of chaos.
They are.
Now, with the girl, can the girls like babysit him? Like, can you guys go?
Yeah. Yeah, for the most part, the girls they're so good. Actually, they'll actually get him dressed. They'll shower him, and they're kind of like they take care of him very much. So it does. And then we'll go out. My 13-year-old will babysit. Especially if it's not too late.
That's epic. That's actually like you won. Now, how often do you guys actually do that? Like, are you reasonably social? Because part of the celeb plastic surgery thing is like, are you expected to be about town or are you not?
Yeah, we have like, probably 2-3 nights a week. We usually have stuff, depending on the time of year. So we try not to stay out too late, but oftentimes we do have stuff that we go to. So yeah, it is a game changer when your kid can watch your other kids.
Huge. Well,
Yeah.
Unfortunately for me, the 5-year-old is the older one, and like
Is the
there's
oldest
no
one.
way in hell he's watching the younger one. It's just, I can tell you that right now. It's not in the cards for me, but I'm thrilled for you. That's great. So, okay, so like 2 to 3 nights a week, that's pretty social. And then what time are you getting up every day? You?
Usually around 5:30, somewhere between 5:30 and 6:30. Just depends if I'm operating or not.
And how long will obviously you do a bunch of different kinds of procedures, but when you do an operating, are you doing an operating day and the whole day is procedures, or?
Usually I'll operate 2 to 3 days a week and then see patients the rest of the week. I try to just, have a full day in the operating room. Either one really big surgery or, 2 or 3 smaller surgeries.
And that does, nothing about that gives you the ick. You get no ick from this.
No.
What does give you the ick? Does anything give you the ick?
Not really. I mean,
pretty well-adjusted king. Okay.
Yeah. I don't like to be like, someone threw up on me or something like that. Not ideal.
Not ideal. But you're not even honestly fazed by that. That's more inconvenient, it sounds like.
Yes.
Once you've come face to face with a cadaver and also you just saw people up all day. But that's why you do what you do and I do what I do. What shoes are you wearing? Do you have a go-to tennis shoe or something for these long days?
Yeah, I've gone through all different type of shoes along the way. I just wear comfortable sneakers with scrubs, like Hoka or something.
That seems to be the new doctor choice.
Yeah,
Chic doctor choice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I try to sit as much as possible when I operate, which people, envision surgeons standing up at the operating room.
But you're doing a lot of face stuff.
Yeah, I do a lot of face, so I try to sit, and I feel like it preserves my back a little bit.
Now, you don't have to tell me who, obviously, HIPAA, etc. But has there been anybody that's come into your office where you've just been like, this is pretty cool?
Yeah, there's been a handful of those. Um, and actually, you'd be surprised. It's the actually famous people are the ones that are not the most difficult ones. It's the ones who
Oh,
think
I
they're
totally
famous.
believe that. I 100% believe that. That there's like an inverse relationship
Yeah.
between actual fame and shenanigans, from what
Yes.
I understand. There's like it's a working
Yes.
theory, but I absolutely believe that. Now, how much did Kris Jenner's coming out and saying like who did her work, like how much did that change the landscape or not for transparency in getting these procedures? Because it's this funny thing where it's like what you do is very like natural and understated and quiet luxury, but then like if I go on your Instagram right now, I'll see a million Jill Zarin's face showing, her before and after, and she's singing it loud and proud, which we know our girl Jill like loves to do about everything that she's into, but like I feel like the conversation has really changed.
Yeah, I think it's changed, and I think it's interesting because I remember several years ago hearing that women in Iran would wear a splint on their nose, whether or not they had their nose done. It was like a status symbol, like, oh, look at me, I had my nose done. And I think we're getting in some ways plastic surgery has become not only taboo, but people really like to talk about it. I think it's like interesting, and I think in some ways it can be sometimes a little bit of a status symbol. So a lot of times, when people are posting on social media about things that they've had done, and with me, I'm not, I don't ask them to do it. But they're like, people are just intrigued by it, and I think that, we're getting to sort of this, radical transparency era
Yeah,
of plastic surgery.
it's very interesting. I mean, if I wasn't as squeamish as I am, I would definitely dive deeper, but like now we're so radical that like the surgeries themselves get posted and I'm like I can't watch. I don't Do you do that? You don't really do that. You
No,
do
I
like you
don't.
do the markup. I can
Yeah,
handle
I
that.
try to. Yeah, there was a time like at the beginning where I would post gory things, and some people are really into it, but I would say a lot of people are not. And I think at the end of the day, most people just want to see like a nice before and after type of
I
photo,
think I'm in
and
that
not
camp.
see all the bruising and gory along the
No.
way.
Now, tell me, what sorts of things are you do you feel like are sort of becoming out of fashion? Like, are there procedures that like were wildly popular that aren't so much anymore?
Well, I think just the overdone look, or like the extreme ratios. So, uh, over filled faces are falling out of favor. People are looking at much more natural, softer volumes, and same thing with the ratios. I mean, like the BBLs. These big butts and small waists. That sort of also is returning back to normal ratios. But we still have things that I think look a little unnatural, like the fox eye, or like these really sort of pulled back lateral brow type of lifts. But as a whole, I think just the era of big breast implants and big butts are sort of we're getting back to sort of the 90s minus Baywatch.
Right. But like also the 90s, one of the things that I've noticed, which is this is not a plastic surgery thing, is just like really kind of like very skinny again, which I
Yes.
don't love.
Yes.
But
That's the Ozempic for
it's
you.
true. It's true. But I'm really into weightlifting. So if anyone is on Ozempic, make sure you're lifting those weights, guys. It's important.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
going to ask you some listener questions. Are you ready? I'm pulling
Ready.
them up. Nothing particularly crazy, but, let's see. One of the questions I had for you is, what do you think, like, if any, do you think there are any, like, misconceptions people have about plastic surgeons and what they do?
Um, That's a good question. Um, yeah, I mean, I think that I think people will like automatically assume you're this like, award-winning, yeah, oil painter or like sculptor.
Interesting. Yeah.
And some of them are amazing artists, and I've always been artistic, but I'm not like
Savant.
my sister's actually, yeah, I'm not like, I could draw, but I'm not, definitely not someone who is like sculpting, like Michelangelo.
Do you have any hobbies outside? It doesn't sound like you have a lot of time for hobbies, but worth asking.
I try to work out. I don't know if that's considered a hobby. I think that's just survival.
Same. Yeah.
I'll try to play tennis or something, but yeah, nothing. Unfortunately, no.
It'll come for us.
I used to watch sports. Yeah.
I just keep saying it'll come back eventually. I'll have
I know.
time eventually. Okay, I've got some. Now, one is, and I know this isn't I'm sure you do it, or maybe you do, I don't know, but just a general question, because I just said plastic surgeon. I didn't say like specialty.
Mm-hmm.
One question that I got from a listener, and also I think is just a common question among moms who have given birth, is tummy tucks. The recovery for something like that, like, seems pretty intense when you have small kids, because you can't pick them up, right?
Yeah. I mean, so tummy tucks, I think of that surgery as like a restorative type of surgery, because so many women, it's of course there's like, extra skin, their skin gets stretched, but a lot of times their muscles are completely destroyed, and I think that to basically restore how things were before pregnancy is important for core strength and obviously just confidence. But it is one of the bigger surgeries that we do. It's a little bit, longer recovery. I'd say it's about, I'll tell patients like 2-week recovery for it. You do need to have help around to help with the kids. And, I do find that women, mothers who have kids that, send their kids to sleepaway camp, they find that the summer is a really good time to do that.
It's a good shout.
So maybe when your kids are a little bit older and you send them off to sleepaway camp for a month or 2 months, depending on how lucky you are. And so sometimes that seems to be a good time frame. But yeah, it's about 2-week recovery. You need help, people taking care of the kids.
Now, the next question is about the BLEF procedure. I feel like that's just in the zeitgeist everywhere now. It's become something that I never heard of like a year ago, and now I'm hearing this term all the time. BLEF versus filler, how do you know which one to do? So first, maybe tell us what is this procedure, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. So BLEF or blepharoplasty, it's basically eyelid rejuvenation. So you have an upper blepharoplasty, which would be, upper eyelid rejuvenation versus lower. Upper eyelids are more simple in that typically you're just removing skin. So if somebody has a hooded upper eyelid, you're oftentimes just removing skin to just sort of open it up a little bit. Lower eyelid blepharoplasty is basically, oftentimes people have bags. Most people are born with it, and so oftentimes you'll see women in their 20s, or I don't see anything on
Oh my
you.
God, did you hear that? He said
have.
He doesn't see anything on me, guys. I very much, like, since I was little, have just like dark circles under my eyes all of the time.
Right.
You don't have bags, Dr. Ira.
I do a little bit. If I look up, you could see them a little bit.
I believe you. You're the doctor.
But so lower eyelid typically involves, if someone has fat pads here, bags or puffy eye, it involves removing that, sometimes tightening up the skin a little bit. So that's sort of, eyelid rejuvenation, whether it's upper or lower eyelids. Filler Filler used to be used more in the lower eyelid area to try to fill hollowing, but filler in this area we've learned to have a lot of issues, and so I would never do filler in that area, and a lot of injectors and surgeons and dermatologists won't do filler in that area anymore because sometimes filler in that area just one time could cause like chronic swelling that's very difficult to get rid of.
Eesh. Okay, you hear that, everybody? Just avoid.
Yeah. So I if you're gonna fill hollowing, I prefer to use fat.
Where does the fat come from?
Usually from your own body.
That's pretty cool.
And and it's natural, it's long lasting, it's soft, and that's my preference to address hollowing.
In my head, you're taking like a syringe and just like scooping it out of my stomach and just popping it in my face. But like
pretty much.
That's kind of I really don't know how you don't throw up at work. Okay. Is vaginal rejuvenation, is that a thing?
It's a thing. Oftentimes it's redundancy of the labia, pregnancy, delivery, hormone changes, all those things can affect the labia, and oftentimes you're just removing excess tissue. So it's a actually very simple operation. Oftentimes you could do it awake under local anesthesia, and you're just kind of
awake.
Just
wow. That
surprisingly very easy and heals very fast. You just can't have sex for a month.
It's okay. Most women don't want to anyway.
Yeah.
Wow, that I am really surprised by how straightforward that seems to be. In my mind, it's like when it's done, underwear come off and there's just like a little singing vag, like, there's a lot of promise in the term vaginal rejuvenation,
Right.
Like that's a real branding, like upmarket sort of thing. Anyway,
yes.
Okay, so we did that. Do you find that there are more male plastic surgeons than female?
Yeah, I think.
Or is that in general there's just more male surgeons than female?
Yeah, although the tide is shifting for sure. For general surgery, I think now there's more women than men. For plastic surgery, I think it's probably becoming more half and half. In general, I think it's out of all the surgical subspecialties, if you're a woman who wants to have a family and be involved with your kids, you could be a plastic surgeon and still find time to do those things. You could do as much or as little as you want. So, it's becoming more and more, more and more women are getting into plastic surgery. They tend to gravitate towards more breast and body, which makes sense because a lot of women may feel more comfortable going to a woman, when it comes to their breasts and their body. So, but there's
I never understood the male OB-GYN thing. That was really never going to be for me.
It's so funny. Both my mom and my wife prefer that. I don't know why.
Prefer a woman?
No, a man.
Oh yeah, this is the thing. I also no, I'm never going to a man for my pachach, but I think that it is very common, especially I feel like it's like a little older school to go to a guy.
Right.
I've also heard that some people, and this is funny because I'm actually interviewing later this week a woman, OBGYN, but some people have said they feel like men have better bedside manner because they can't even pretend to understand your discomfort, so they have to like empathize more. I don't know.
I've heard that. I heard like when it comes to like giving birth, sometimes they may be a little bit more
soft,
gentle.
It's okay. I saw mine for like the 2 pushes and never saw her again, basically. Okay, now I have a couple of last questions from me. Those were our listener questions. From me, I want to know, are you like that super valuable friend that people always want to have on call because you're a doctor to ask all of their doctorly questions to?
Yeah, I get texts a lot and things like that. Especially at a cocktail reception. People love That's why I come late.
Yeah. People are like, you're just trying to like unwind and catch up with people. And they're like, so I have this growth. Do you think you could
Yes,
just.
exactly, exactly. No, so it happens a lot, but it's okay. I enjoy talking to people, but yes, it's definitely you become a go-to for all types of things.
And for not obviously like non-cosmetic stuff, do you ever have occasion to have kids come see you, or are they going to see like specialist pediatric plastic surgeons if something comes up?
Yeah, if it's something very specialized like reconstructive, yeah, you would go to. I mean, I'll do like an ear pinning in a little kid or like lacerations, and but I won't. If there's any reconstructive jaw surgery, that's much more specialized.
Can't imagine, but knock
Yeah.
on something. I never have to worry about that. Okay, so let's wrap up with our my last question. Is we started this conversation talking about like there was a very clear direction in your house of like what the expectations were, where you would go in this life by hell or high water, how your house was managed, and it sounds like generationally, you and your wife have like come from different places but work to build something that works for you and your family that's different than the generation before. And now you're your own house and you're starting to lay the foundation for what your kids will come to think about and expect, both like expectations that they have of themselves and their families one day. Do you ever think about like what you hope that looks like for them, what you hope that they want for themselves or their families when they're, growing up? I know they're still little, but sometimes we can't help but think about this stuff. Do you ever have those thoughts?
You know what? I yes and no. I kind of, it's so hard to anticipate what our kids are gonna, what their lives are gonna look like when they're older because the world is changing fast, and professions that our parents, a YouTuber or app developer. I mean, these are things that like my parents would have completely disowned me if I ever mentioned something like that. But this YouTuber is doing. Some of them are doing quite well, and it turns into media companies and everything. So I think just helping them find something that interests them that they could build upon, would make me happy.
And for you and your wife, as you guys move forward to like new chapters of parenting, are you the type that are you like reading books on how to do this stuff? Are you going by intuition? How are you navigating when you reach a novel problem that you haven't faced yet? Are you getting advice from your
Intuition.
friends? What are you doing?
No, no. We just kind of figure it out on the fly.
Okay. All right. Well, you're raising like chic New York City kids. Is there anything you would else want our listeners to know if they are plastic surgery curious? Is there anything you would want them to know?
Yeah, I mean, I think that sometimes it's better to just go and schedule a consultation and talk to a plastic surgeon than try to gather all this data online. I think it could be very confusing and difficult to decipher and overwhelming, frankly, than just finding a plastic surgeon that's reputable and
Yeah, how do you screen
finding out
who's good? I mean, not everybody lives in New York, so we can't all go to Dr. Ira. How do you kind of like suss if somebody's your guy or gal?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. Obviously, like knowing somebody that went to that surgeon is always helpful, like a word of mouth. But making sure that their credentials are up to par, that they're board certified plastic surgeons, that their aesthetic on their website matches your aesthetic, and just sometimes it's just a vibe check. Honestly, like sometimes you look through their website or their social media, and sometimes you feel like that's your vibe and sometimes it's not your vibe, and I think that's really important.
Okay. All right. Well, this has been so interesting. Thank you for being transparent with us and sharing all of this stuff about your life, which I'm sure your patients are maybe not asking you when they're coming in for a chat about a blef or whatever they're coming in for. But this has been really fun. And we're going to put a link to your practice in the show notes. I'm going to follow up with your team to give us some other things. One of the things we do here is we post like, what does this family have for dinner in a week, Monday through Sunday? So just forward that to the housekeeper. She can fill that part out.
Yeah. Literally.
This is a no judgment zone. There's a lot of ways to feed a family. But I appreciate you giving us time at the end of a day when otherwise I'm sure it's chaos in your house right now.
Yes. No, thank you for allowing me to stay away from home for a little bit longer. So it's been fun.
Team, I need your help. If you love it here, please like and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Subscribe to the Substack for full access to this episode's show notes and join the discussion. And of course, follow me on Instagram at mutha, mutha.life for a daily look at all things mother. Thanks for listening. Be sure to tune in next week for another Chat in the Closet. This podcast was produced by Mother Life, music by Ronan Landa. See you next time.